They say when a baby is born, so is a mother. But while you are there to help your baby grow into the person he or she is meant to be, who is there to help you? Many women feel lost and alone when they become mothers, wondering, who am I now? Sometimes it feels like the transformation from woman to mother is as radical as a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly. Did you know that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar literally turns into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly? This podcast is about the goop, what soul transformation looks like as you transition from being a woman to a mom. Your baby's growth matters, but yours does too. You're not alone. I'm your host, Brittany Ming. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis. Welcome to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis and part 4 of our series on surrogacy. This is part 2 of Shay's story about becoming a mother through surrogacy. In part 1, we ended her story right before her daughter Ruby was born. Let's dive right in.
And things were a little strained because I know Mariah wanted to birth at the birth center, and we all of those plans changed, and I'll be truthful, it was at her expense. It was at her expense that things changed, and it wasn't what she wanted, and it hurt me in my heart. I just didn't see another way. It wasn't a bit for me. It was never like I need my way. For me, it was like, this is what's right. I just know it in my bones, in my heart, in my soul, in my gut. But Mariah and I still had we carried on a very good relationship throughout it. There was just that tension. And then something happened where I think Mariah was about 39 weeks, and we went to our scheduled specialist appointment. And the doctor said, "Oh, your amniotic fluid it's gone. So we need to induce labor right now." And the weird thing is that if we were birthing at the birth center, we would have been disqualified for needing to induce the labor, which meant we would have had to have made emergency arrangements at a hospital, which it wouldn't have been great for especially for what Mariah wanted. It made me feel relieved because I didn't want to feel like I would put Mariah through all this for nothing. And it seemed like Mariah expressed to me and said, "Gosh, I'm glad that we have this other provider all set up at Press. I think that's a good thing."
Mm-hmm.
And Mariah was just so generous in her processing that she acknowledged that we would have been disqualified from Dara Luz. This is a silver lining to all of this kind of thing. So then Mariah went to the hospital. They induced labor. And Mariah and Bobby keeping their sense of humor throughout it all. We had code names and nicknames through the whole thing. Mama Duck's headed to the hospital. That was her code name. We had a lot of fun with it. And Mariah was ecstatic, excited. Mariah had a very wonderful doula who was there for her the whole time. We had a videographer who filmed the entire labor and birth and delivery. And all of this was at Mariah's request too, because I'm telling you right now, we would not have had a camera in there unless Mariah wanted it. And and when I say it, I mean for her sake, not that we didn't want the baby filmed, but for her sake, we would never. She had some wonderful ideas about how all of this would go down. And it did. And she knew because she's done it. She's had a baby before. And because I thought, well, do you want me in the room the whole time? And she said, no, we'll invite you to the room during certain periods of the birth, of the labor stages. And I thought, well, FOMO, I don't want to be left out. But then when it happened, I said, oh my gosh, she was so right, because it was so long and it was so exhausting. It was so stressful that I needed my own space, like, to process the labor leading up to the birth. And I didn't even know I was going to need that. I thought I was going to want to be like in the room the whole time. I was invited in at really critical stages in the labor, which was so great to see because I knew that I was watching my daughter about to be born. I was watching Ruby about to be born. And at this point, she is just very much Ruby because we had decided her name after the gender reveal. It's a family name. It's Tyler's both of his grandmothers are named Ruby. And
Aww.
and our last name's Roy. Tyler's last name is
Ruby
Roy.
Roy.
I couldn't resist, right? And my middle name is Anne, and my mom's middle name is Anne, so I named her Ruby Ann Roy. It rolled off the tongue, and I thought this is it. This is her name, and so we knew her name for a while. And so she's at this point, she's Ruby, Ruby girl, and I'm watching the process of her about to be born, and I just did the most incredible things throughout the labor. She breathed. She took care of her body. She took care of her mind. She took care of herself. She soaked in the tub. She had some calm lighting, calm ambiance, some music. She watched some funny shows and laughed. I mean, just I am so proud for my daughter that she got to have such a great birth. I'm so happy for her. I'm so happy for me that my child was able to birth that my child was birthed in this way. And I'm just so proud of Mariah and so happy for Mariah because at the very end of it all, despite having been induced, there was no other interventions that came about. Mariah had a completely natural birth aside from being induced. And she didn't even take anesthesia or epidural or whatever they're called. I mean, lady warrior. It was amazing. And that's what that's what she wanted. That was her goal. She told us that was her goal. So I was so happy for her. And she gave birth alert, and with her surrounded by people who love her, but Bobby, her doula, her videographer, aka one of her BFFs, and our midwife who was just there for Mariah. I don't even think a doctor came in. It was not an emergency. There was not a medical intervention. It was just a beautiful experience of a woman birthing a baby in all of her glory. It's really cool. And I'm so fortunate because Mariah had requested that I catch Ruby, and our midwife was very supportive of this. So Mariah gave birth right over the hospital bed, and Mariah was on her knees when she gave birth. So I caught Ruby from behind Mariah and I saw Ruby's eyes, and they were just popped open, and she was so alert, and it was crazy was seeing Ruby come out. And Ruby, I felt like Ruby looked like me. She had real dark hair, and her eyes looked dark, and her skin tone, and just she looked like Tyler and I. And I thought, oh, if I was giving birth, I'd imagine this is what my baby would look like, because when you're not giving birth, you're like, you see Mariah there, and you're thinking Mariah. And then the baby comes out, and it's like, there's Ruby, there's my child. Oh my gosh, it was so intense. And the pain Mariah must have been going through. I mean, bearing witness to that was just, it was so intense, especially because I didn't just go in there and say, this is a person having my baby, right? This is a person that's going to give me a baby. I went in there and I thought, this is a person who's doing me the biggest favor of my life. And this is a person who has it in her heart to give birth to a baby so we can have a family, and who has all these great, beautiful ideas around how special it is to give birth. And damn it, I do not like seeing her in pain.
Yeah.
Just how you build up this sort of bond with someone. And so it was very, very intense to see Mariah in labor and to see her going through the pain. But she took so much pride in it. I mean, she invited that, from what I could see, she invited that pain in, and she pushed through it. And I think that was a big part of her goal based on what she had expressed to us. And so the minute Ruby was born, Mariah said, I want to hold her. And I said, oh, absolutely. And so Mariah held her on her chest, and Mariah kind of talked to her for a minute. And I was so happy that Ruby got to feel Mariah on her chest. And then And then they said, okay, we're going to take Ruby and we're going to take you all into another room. And I said, leave Mariah right now. Oh, okay. Okay. And I looked at Mariah just kind of like, are you okay? And of course I was like thanking her and crying and hugging her. Um, and Mariah said, go, go. She's like, I need to recover. Get out of here. And I said, okay. And I turned around and looked at her and I reached for her once I got to the door. Like I reached out my arm to her. And then I walked out the door and I made eye contact right before I walked out of the door. And I just, the intensity of emotion was crazy.
Yeah. No, I'm getting teary thinking about it. Like I'm just imagining this. And okay, this is a weird thing to say, but I have seen the birth video of your child being born when she shared it because I've known her for a long time. And so I was so excited that she was being a surrogate. And so I have seen the video that she shared of Ruby being born. Isn't
Oh,
that crazy?
good.
Because we're strangers, but like I have seen that. I saw her being born. So
Oh, that is so. I'm so glad you got to see it, and that's why we were all in favor of the video too, because we just very proud of this situation, the circumstances. It's a non-traditional birth, and what does that look like? I mean,
yeah,
how as a woman not birthing your own child, especially your biological child, it's pretty wild. It's
yeah,
pretty wild to have experienced that as a woman. The level of appreciation for Mariah, I don't think that I could ever have that same level of appreciation for a person as long as I live.
yeah.
And it is palpable. I mean, it was palpable in when she was giving birth, which again, there are a lot of circumstances where a surrogate and the intended parents won't see each other throughout a birth.
Mm.
And I'm hoping that's becoming less of a thing, but being there together with Mariah was so special, and seeing Ruby come out. And so then afterwards, we have Ruby in the room, and they're checking her vitals and everything, and she's screaming, belting it out, crying, just doing the thing that healthy babies do. And Mariah was so wonderful because she provided colostrum in a syringe for us to provide to Ruby, because I wasn't producing obviously any breast milk, and I could have been had it like induced. I would have had to started like 3 months before with hormones and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, this just might be one more thing we just don't need to deal with. And so we made the hard decision to forego that from my trying to produce that myself. Mariah did provide breast milk for Ruby for about a month and a half, and she was pumping, and oh my gosh, I mean, just and Mariah wanted to pump too, because she said there's benefits when you pump, that she felt those benefits would be good for her. So she was very generous about pumping and providing and meeting up to get the breast milk and label the breast milk. And it was a lot on her part. And I just really appreciated it. And so Ruby did breast milk for about a month, and then we switched over to formula, which she did really well on. But so right after Ruby was born, I'm like holding her, and you can see she's kind of looking for something to suckle on, and I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, ow, this hurts that I can't
Yes.
provide this. But at the same time, I'm like holding this baby that I never thought I'd be able to hold. So
Mhm.
the primary emotion here is like, I can't believe we effing did it. I can't believe it. And so, anyways, we get the colostrum syringe, and I feed it to her, and we're holding her, and then we're doing skin to skin. And the stay in the hospital was like so crazy, because after all this, now I'm a mom. And I didn't even quite conceptualize what that was going to be like until it happened. I mean, the idea of taking care of someone else while you're taking care of yourself at the same time, it's not something that one can imagine.
Yeah. No woman, who never how prepared she is, I think it hits every new mom just like, whoa, I could never have prepared enough for this moment because it's just beyond what you think it's gonna be.
Absolutely. I mean, the adrenaline was really high during the post-birth period, because it's new, and it's like there's this little, it's like when you I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but it's like when you get a new puppy and you're really excited and but then you're like, okay, now I got to deal with poop and food and feeding the puppy and the barking and all the things,
And the
right?
crying all night, yes, in the
Yeah.
kennel.
If you haven't had a baby, if someone hasn't had a baby and they're listening, I would say, okay, you probably had a new puppy, and yeah, it's exciting at first. You get that same kind of feeling with a baby. Well, we did anyways. We got that same kind of feeling with the baby where it was exciting and there was adrenaline and everything. But then you start to really settle into a routine especially once you get home. And some people know how to be helpful, and it's usually the people that have had kids themselves. And then there's people who don't know how to help out a new mom. Probably more people that don't know how to help out a new mom, because everyone else is excited about the baby too. So they're saying, send me pictures. I want to come visit. What can I do to help you? I need you to help me help you. And you're like, oh my God, I just want to lay here in bed, or I just want to sit here and hold my baby, or I want someone to feed me, or I want someone to rub my temples or rub my feet. I mean, it becomes so primal right after, like, your needs become so primal after you have a baby. And like the identity factor for me didn't even cut in until about 3 months after Ruby was born. And then I started to have some, you could call it mommy brain. And I think I know mommy brain is technically a term surrounding the hormonal shifts, which I didn't have a lot of those, but there's a very, what is it called? Not a neurosis that develops when you take responsibility for another human being, that I experienced, that came with symptoms, brain fog, anxiety, adrenaline, all those things. And it was bizarre because in some ways people thought I had it easier because I didn't birth. And I probably did, if you look at a side by side in terms of my own, physical health. But the long game of it, I do feel like I relate so much to anyone that's become a mother, because the long game of it is really enmeshed in identity and balancing your life and the life of this new human that you are now responsible for,
And the
and that
lack
you
of sleep.
love.
Yeah.
And the lack of sleep. So the lack of sleep was a bit, I mean, the first 3 months were there, it was like the Maslow's needs hierarchy of needs, where the first 3 months is about surviving. It's about sleep. It's about eating. It's about overcoming the physical exhaustion and the physical discomfort of having this baby. And then at about 3 months in, you start thinking about what this means for the rest of your life.
You're like, oh my gosh.
And
it's a lot.
Yes, and how other people see you, and how especially if you have a family that is very involved in your life, that isn't afraid to express opinions about what they think you should be doing, or about what they think your child should be doing, and what they think you and your family need. Our world is full of that, and they're part of our village. But it can be really hard to find your identity outside of that. And also, to be quite frank, there's like an unspoken assignment, automatic assignment for women when you have a child, that was so much more influential and hit me so much stronger than I thought it would, around being able to balance everything. And I think the biggest thing is that the deficit thinking, I always felt like, as a mother, because my four mothers, they took on a lot of our four mothers took on a lot of the domestic labor, a lot of the child rearing labor. And so for me to be doing, let's say, half of what my mother and my grandmother did for their children, that puts me in a hole, like in terms of like thinking, conceptualizing myself as a mom, like, who's a better mom? Well, obviously the mom that did more than I'm doing, right? And then for my husband, he has done so much more than my father or his father ever did for us as children. So he is like totally in the green. He's starting out way up here, Oh, Tyler gave Ruby a bath. He is such a fantastic father. Oh, Tyler's changing her diaper for the third time today. Wow. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Shay, you're letting Tyler do that again? Or, Shay, do you get up in the middle of the night too? It starts to feel like a judgment.
Yeah.
And those were things that I was absolutely not prepared for. They're still sinking in. I mean, Ruby's 2.5, and she relies so much on us to take care of her, as any 2-year-old does. And I still think to myself, am I doing enough? And I still find myself exhausted at the end of the day, having accomplished literally nothing for myself. My self-care would have been very minimal. And by the end of the day, I'm still saying to myself, I didn't do enough. I should have done more today for Ruby.
Yeah. I know that's hard. It's hard. I think that first 5-year adjustment, you're adjusting to taking care of your child, but you're so much adjusting to taking care of this new version of yourself. And because you're just getting to know yourself for the first time. And I think it takes a good 5 years. And to be like, there she is. There I am. And then
I love that.
you're just like, okay, hi, me in the mirror. We're going to be able to do this. And we're going to, my past me, and my present me, and my future me. Like, you suddenly, I think that at 5 years, maybe it's less for other people, but usually after each, and I've had 5 children, like after each child, I have to go through that process. And it takes about 5 years. So it's this huge transformation. But I think that for me, what helped the process along was learning to listen to my own intuition, just digging into that female intuition and that motherhood intuition and saying, this is the voice that matters the most in this relationship with this child and in my relationship with myself. So I don't know if that encourages you at all, but that's a little wisdom I can pass along from a mom who's been at it just a little bit longer.
Oh, that absolutely does encourage me. And I think the dynamics, I know we talked a lot about the surrogacy journey, that was our journey for having Ruby. A lot of times that has been having had Ruby in such a non-traditional way, and me having to forego, I don't know how to say this. Like, for me, for having so much more assistance than I suppose a lot of other women have in traditional pregnancies, for Ruby to exist, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes I feel like I don't have the right to ever feel unhappy or think about myself. Sometimes I think to myself, and in no way has Mariah ever made me feel this way, but there are a lot of times where I think, I want Mariah to be proud of the kind of parent that I am, because look what she did for us to have this baby. Like, I would never want her to feel like, oh, Shay's a bad mom. Not that she ever would, but see, then you start feeling these thoughts of, do I deserve Ruby?
Mm.
And so any thought that's negative about motherhood starts to feel like I'm slapping everyone else in the face who helped me to become a mom.
Mm. Do you feel like those are expectations that you put on yourself, or do you feel like they come from the outside? Like,
I
you
think
should be so happy. Yeah.
I do think they're put on myself to an extent, but I do think there's still a large narrative right now in our culture that there's not an honesty around what motherhood is really like for a lot of women, and how it can encompass the worst day of your life and the best day of your life. That's the thing, is that I do think that there was a time it was just completely unacceptable to talk negatively about being a mom and having children and saying, I don't like this, or like, today I didn't like this, or sometimes I don't want to do this, sometimes, or any sort of thing where a woman or a mother can criticize being a mother. That hasn't really been a welcoming thoughts to share, I think, in general. I think so. That's where I kind of feel like I'm especially prone to maybe being judged, because a lot of people had to pitch in, more people had to pitch in for Ruby to happen. So I feel like I want people to feel like I deserved this. I deserve to have this child. and I can't have any bad negative thoughts around being a mom.
Because somehow that makes you unworthy of being a mom if you have a hard day, or if you're sharing a struggle, or you have like, this is really hard and I don't want to have to wipe butts again, and you just poured out all the rice on the floor and I'm just exhausted. And like, yes, I have a friend, and she had her children through adoption, and she has an open adoption with her birth mothers.
Mm-hmm.
But she said, this was a long time ago. I think we all had little kids, like under 5. So we were all chatting about this, and we asked about her birth mothers, and she's like, she sends them birthday cards, and they do Christmas cards and Christmas gifts and stuff like that. But she's like, I'm not friends with them on Facebook because I want to be able to complain like, this kid did something. And like, I wanted to be able to have a bad day and them not see it. And she was like the most serene person. We were like, you have bad days? Like, we were like aghast that she was so unflappable with her sons. We were like, you have bad days? You like want to complain about motherhood? And I think it was just this collective, like, we all laughed and we thought, even she has bad days, like, and she's a great mom. Even
Mm-hmm.
she adopted these children and can complain, like, motherhood is really hard, like, it doesn't exclude the negative that you have hard days in motherhood, because motherhood is hard, no matter how your children came to you, whether it was through adoption or surrogacy, or you went through a really hard pregnancy, or you had the most beautiful pregnancy. I have a son, and my best birth was my 4th son, the most amazing birth, but my hardest postpartum. So it's so hard to be like, how can I balance? It's just saying it's both and. It's both and. It's both the good,
Both
it's the hard.
and
And like that is motherhood. Is like, I think sometimes the hardest mental part is saying it's not one thing and it's not the other thing, it's everything. And accepting that this is the journey. And sometimes that is just fucking hard. Like, to accept that this is the journey.
so hard. That is so well said, Brittany. I feel like you're inside my mind. You're speaking from inside my mind, because it's like it's a culmination of things, and it's not even a totality, but it's like you said, it's everything. It's both. It's all. It's not just, all peaches and cream, or it's everything. It's all the things that we process, and definitely it's been a process, because you keep thinking you're going to wait every day, you're going to wake up different as a mom, but you start to realize that for me, I realize I wake up and my brain just feels really chaotic, and my brain feels really like things are happening, things are moving. One day I feel like jello, the next day I feel like I've got ants running up and down my skin. I mean, it feels like everything about me is changing as I mother this child, but it feels like there's definitely a light. There's a forest through the trees when you have a moment to like sit and think, and you can kind of say, okay, this is, you see what you see the timeline behind you, you see the memories that you've created behind you, and the more memories you have that you create with your child, you kind of look back and you say, oh, okay, this is a process. This isn't going to happen all at once for her, for your child, for you, or even your partner. But it's definitely I feel like the mother is at the pinnacle of it, for sure.
Yeah, it is. And you're going through the most transition in this journey.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
huge. I so appreciate you sharing your story. I know that you've been through a lot. I just want to acknowledge that. Like, you've been through a lot and you're still in it, and you're doing amazing. So keep doing good things.
Thank you
Thank
so much, Brittany, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today.
I have a fun question I want to ask I always end with like a kind of a fun ending question. What is saving your life right now? We've kind of talked, you're in the middle of a 2-year-old life. So what is saving your life? And it can be really funny. It can be like coffee is saving my life.
Definitely coffee. Saving my life. Oh gosh. I'm looking around because I'm sitting in my house right now, and I'm thinking, what gets me through? It's more than just one thing. Can I just say that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
But if I had to boil it down, I would definitely say other supportive women in my life. I have to say that, because as much as we tend to feel judged, or we have to mask around a lot of people in our lives, there are women in my life that are incredibly supportive, that I don't have to mask with, and that they support me in a way that makes me feel whole when I'm sharing so much of myself with this child.
Yes. Yes, that's invaluable. Having those friends and having those supports are what get us through. And I have those people in my life, and yeah, they get you through each day.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on, Shay. I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Next, tell your friends. Podcasts are a slow growth type of social media, so promo works best when it's from person to person. If you know another mom who's in the goop right now, send her a text of encouragement and the link to the episode that is speaking to your heart right now. If you have a story about your own matrescence, the physical, emotional, hormonal, and social transition that occurs when someone becomes a mother, please leave a comment below. I want this channel to be a place where women can build community about the challenges and joys of their own motherhood metamorphosis. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some good food for thought. If you ever have any questions, comments, or you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can email me at brittanyaming@gmail.com.